Hello, lovely viewers, and welcome to another exciting edition of our show, Captured by Women. My name is Priscilla, and I'll be co-hosting the show with Abena, Amma, and Susan. So, as usual, we'll be sharing our perspective on what made headlines for this week. We'll look at the security issues heading towards the polls, 2016 December. And then we'll look at the IEA debate and matters arising thereof. And then last up, we will discuss the NPP and PPP raising issues on the EC's special registration out of the Constitution. It promises to be an exciting show. Stay tuned. We'll take a quick break from our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, lovely viewers. On the spin today, we're discussing the IEA debate that just went off. We had three political aspirants on the platform. We had Mr. Papa Kwesi Ndum of the PPP. We had the independent aspirant, Mr. Osei Yeboah, and then we had Dr. Edward Mahama. Ladies, it was an interesting night. We had three. I'm sure the question on everyone's minds after that was why the MPP and the NDC presidential aspirants were not there, as well as the CPP. But I thought Mr. Ivor Greenstreet had one of the encounters, the night encounters, and the questions were pretty much similar. So maybe that was, for him, I would at least excuse him. But for the MPP and NDC, everyone was wondering what the issue is. I know before we had heard a few of the issues, but going into it anyways, those who were there would like to take a few views what your take was.
Oh, well, I don't know. Unfortunately I didn't get to watch it, but yes, I know the three gentlemen took the stage, and I heard it was interesting. So basically, this is any account I give here at TSA. So, but that's fine. But the bigger question is how a debate of this nature impacts the outcome of elections, because we are looking at issues. And in a previous discussion, I think it came up from Susan that we don't vote on issues largely. I think that is a fact, and perhaps we need to deal with that. How we get around with that, I don't know, but that is a fact, because issues consistently, we need to talk about issues, we need to have an issues-based campaign and all of that, but at the end of the day, we realize that it goes beyond that. It's not just the issues. And how do we get it? How do we get to that point? So then you begin to ask yourself what the relevance of such debates is or are exactly. And especially when you don't have all the contesting candidates there. It begins to raise issues, and then I'm like, well, maybe it didn't really
serve the purpose.
Exactly. Moving forward, I mean, I think there should be a certain criteria that if indeed we're pursuing this issues-based campaign thing, then we should have all presidential candidates, present, or you have a certain cutoff point that it would depend on performance. If you're not able to pull a certain, because that's what with the US, that's what they do. So if we are going to model certain things around certain best practices and standards, then perhaps we need to be considering those things. But really, that's my take on it. Because I didn't watch it, I can't really speak to it.
Susan?
Well, I think that it went very well. I mean, it was it had nothing to do with the encounters, because I'm sure the question would be why Ivor didn't come. I think that logistically it was a bit of a nightmare for him to come where he was and get in on time. So that's the reason why he didn't show up. And IEA was not very happy, but these things do happen. But it gave people an opportunity to ask questions. Yes, those who want to seek our office ought to be, asked questions. They need to put their ideas forward. Obviously, if you are the incumbent, people then have even more to ask you of why their life is going in a particular manner since you've taken charge. And so I'm sure people were fairly disappointed that the NDC didn't make an appearance so that they could ask. It also, would have afforded the opportunity for us to see that the parties who want to get into office, how they come across from the incumbent, because I'm sure the opportunity would have been to interact with the debate with the incumbent.
Yeah.
The debates are good. It also allows people to see how quickly you think on your feet as a leader, your demeanor in terms of questions, etc., etc., etc. So, there haven't been the studies whether it accrues in votes, and whether it allows people to change their mind. But it is an opportunity to showcase the kind of brains that we have that are wanting to, occupy the highest office of the land. And I think it's important. Nobody should think that, it's not important. I would hope that the other parties would show up for the subsequent debates. I know that, IEA is going to hold another one, and GBC is going to hold one also. And I would hope that all the candidates will show up so that we can see them, how they perform, their demeanor, the way they speak, and then how they think on their feet, etc., etc., etc. We are evolving, and as we evolve and refine, these are some of the things that go along with it. I heard people do the fact check on them. This is an opportunity to do the fact check also, to know who is on top of the issues. You see, if I stand on a political platform, and I'm having a rally, things get said. You wouldn't do too much of a fact check there. But when you are in that kind of environment, then it's possible for the people, journalists or interested parties to do the fact check, and that's good.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, just throwing a question out there, will this impact the election in any way?
I mean, the mere fact that the two biggest parties were not there says something. And I think it's more of a slap on the IEA as an institution, because I think there's been other debates by GTV. GTV has hosted a couple of debates. Yes, debates are important. But I think it's the fact that, I don't know what the IEA has done, but I've heard in courtesies how people do not want to patronize the IEA, how persons have come out to say that, look, the IEA is somebody's private organization, and so
but
they don't feel obliged.
GBC has never had a debate for the
But
president.
the encounter with the president.
Yeah, the encounter with but that's not a debate. The encounter with the president.
No, I think basically
but
the essence
the
is
debate.
that it was able to draw the precedent.
Well, they have drawn the president
the
before.
president there.
The previously.
No, we're talking about this
Yeah, I know.
incumbent
I mean,
one.
I think that people may have problems with IEA. I mean, look,
Not
the
even
party.
young people,
the-
like NDC, for instance, because the NDC.
the NDC has always had problems with the
came out.
IEA sometimes.
But
they-
And
sometimes
when,
they
you
came,
know,
so
but
why now?
The funny thing is that when the party is in power, they have problems with the IEA, because we saw this also in when the MPP was in power, where they had problems with the IEA, and then come NDC, they also seem to have problems with the IEA, and
The
it probably
were happy to have the IEA debates to introduce President Mahama.
Yes, because
So-
yes, 2012 they did.
Yes, they did.
Yes.
So I mean, the IEA has been in existence for 20-something
More than
years.
20 years,
Last year was the 25th anniversary they've had it. So at least they've been in existence for 26 years, and they've been doing this. I mean, when people,
But you're still questioning their credibility.
IEA, exactly.
So
Where
that's
persons
well,
are
I mean,
trying to say
but it's the
IEA
parties,
is
it's
not the only.
the part. Well, I mean,
we
I
have
mean,
the
at the
party.
moment, they are the ones who have been organizing
And
it.
even that has been
You
contested
understand?
by
That has been
several
contested.
voices that
By
IEA is not the only, and that has come from
From government, the parties, I mean,
There's never been a debate that has not been organized by the
fantastic.
IEA.
That is a fact. But
Yes.
people have had cause to question that. That is the IEA the only platform that, or is
But
the
it's
only
a private, so people can go ahead and organize their
I'm
own.
just
That's the
speaking
thing.
yes, but
You
I'm just
know.
speaking to the fact that yes, indeed, the IEA has been in existence for over 20-something years, and they have come to be known as
these presidential
exactly the
debates.
that the institution that does these things. But in recent times, they have been questioned. You remember when the NCCE came out to say that they are also going to, and then the executive director, Mrs. Jean Mensah, came out to say that
they
well,
didn't
perhaps
have
exactly
the mandate or the wherewithal to organize.
There was a backlash.
Not the mandate, because the
No,
IEA does not have a constitutional
have
mandate to do that.
So mandate
you get
was
it. So mandate is not
somehow.
no. What I think they
Mandate,
probably
Susan.
was wherewithal, not mandate. I don't
Well,
think
they
so.
questioned that too.
You know. But I mean, but the thing is that even in America, it's not done by the government. It's done by a private foundation, where the private foundation gets money, that are not government
government institute. And
it's not a public institute.
It's a public policy, and not a public institute, but it's a public policy institute.
But the question, let's go back to the question. The question was, can this debate impact the 2016 election? That was really the focus. Because, like we said, people don't listen to the issues. And even for me, it was difficult. I was thinking about the fact that in the US, it was two people. So it's always easy. In a debate, normally, we have against and for, or two people, and it's easier to listen to one train of thought and follow. But in a situation where there are three or four or five, and really some answers are similar, there's very little change maybe in wording or it's difficult to really tell whether this is the agenda they had set as a group, or it's just because the platform has asked the question, they have to respond. Like you said,
but they have manifestos.
Yeah, I agree they have manifestos, but how many of us will get the chance to read CPP, PPP, MPP?
But you should, because you're going to vote.
The reality,
you're going to make a choice.
That's what I'm saying. That's what should be.
No, but
majority,
you are then perpetuating the duopoly we just talked about.
No, I'm not perpetuating anything. I'm only bringing forth the realistic thing, the questions on people's minds, so that we can debate, talk about it and see how best to go about it. If you are bringing your manifesto in less than a month to time, sweetheart, it's not that I don't have anything to do, that I'll come and carry someone's manifesto, put it on my lap and read it like a
your
text.
vote is powerful. You're making a choice for
then the person has already made
up his mind
for who to vote for. That's why we're asking the question. If it
but
comes
to the
early,
extent that the political party waits and
up
outdoors
until
its manifesto a month or two to the
But
election,
it's
a lot on the people as well.
Manifestos generally are a statement of intent, okay? But usually they are fed by the philosophy of the party. So look, there are certain things. Look, I am an Nkrumahist, okay? There are certain things that may not be in my manifesto in black and white. But because I'm an Nkrumahist, you know a certain way I would go. I believe in state intervention. You get
any
it.
Specific ideology to the left, social democrats, communists, capitalists,
no, every party has a certain ideology in which they focus on. No, you get it, and will inform how certain actions will go.
Yes.
So
we totally get it. So yes,
you have to make the time to make the choice.
But you just said here that we don't even vote on issues, which is a fact. So
that's what I'm trying to raise, so that we think.
So that's been the spin for this morning. We're looking at the IEA debate, but also situating it within the bigger context of debates within our democratic dispensation, the relevance of such debates, and moving forward, how we can make such activities on our political calendar even more enhanced. We'll take a break. When we come back, the show continues. You're watching Captured by Women.
Welcome back, lovely viewers. So on Big Bang 1, we're looking at the security atmosphere and the seeming tension towards election 2016. Discussing the issue with us is Professor Balfour Agyeman-Duah. He is a former UN Senior Governance Advisor. Welcome, sir, to Captured by Women.
I'm very happy to be here.
So we are looking at the security atmosphere as we're heading towards the polls. It appears as though the security forces and agents are quite dormant or inactive, in light of conflicts and fights here and there. What is it? What does this indicate? Is there anything to look forward to and to expect in the coming elections?
Yeah, first of all, I'm not surprised that towards elections we are all a little bit tensed up, because all the elections we have had in our Fourth Republic, we normally tend to have some challenges with security. And I have to tell you, I've been following Ghanaian elections very closely since the Republic. and I've observed elections in many African countries, so I know what it is when people don't feel secure. So far, I think this election, the one that is going to occur in 2 weeks, I think the tension seems to be higher than most of the elections I've observed in this country. Why is that so? I think it's because the stakes are really high. Not that the past elections didn't have high stakes, but if you consider the fact that the incumbent president wants to serve his second term, because if he fails to get the victory, it means he will set a history, he will make history for being the first president in the Fourth Republic who could not serve 2 terms. And then the main challenger, in this case Nana Akufo-Addo, he's going for his 3rd attempt. Again, if he fails to win, that's the end of him politically. So you can understand why the two sides seem to be going after each other. Now, having said that, I think generally the security agencies have been doing well. The other day, I understand that the military paraded their weapons. That surprised me a little bit, because you do not seek to intimidate your own citizens all because of elections. But maybe in military terms, security terms, say flags the muscle a little bit for people to know you are around. So maybe that's what they did. The police are here, they're having training every now and then. There are announcements from the IGP talking about being ready. They've identified 5,000 or more hotspots where they are going to deploy their special forces. So I think those measures are being taken. But despite all that, I think people are not very much assured of security because of how people perceive the police in performing its duty. Because as you know, there have been quite a few incidents, some serious incidents. And so far as I know, I'm not sure the police has arrested and tried anybody, despite the fact that at times some of these incidents happen in front of police officers.
Exactly. And that's one of the major concerns about, I think, the majority of Ghanaians, that you have a police force that is supposed to act in certain instances. And these issues about political motivated violence have been perpetrated for the longest time. And perhaps the reason that it continues to happen is that the police do not necessarily make arrests and prosecute these offenses. And there's no deterrent, I mean, really, for people not to do these things again and again. And why is that? Is it because of political interference in the police processes or operations?
That seems to be the case, because in fact a week ago a good friend of mine, Dr. Anin, made that point. After the incident close to the house, or at the house of the main opposition leader, Nana Akufo-Addo's residence, I think the president made a public statement that it's the police that did not perform well, or they failed in their duty. And that prompted Dr. Anin to make the point that if the police feel that in fact they are doing their work, but because of political interference, then they should have the courage to say so, so that at least the public will understand why they are not performing. I think it's important, though, for the police to begin to exhibit absolute professionalism in the work they do. That's the only way out.
Well, I mean, I listened to the commander at the incident. He says he was the silver commander at the incident. And he said that they did their professional duty to prevent harm from happening, and that nobody was maimed and nobody was hurt, even though in the extreme provocation, because he had a gun waved in front of him, it was handled professionally in such a way that tensions went down and nobody was hurt. So this is their version of the incident, that what happened. Well, I guess it may be that their first duty is to protect life and property. And they think that maybe that was done. But do you think that waving a gun in the face of a policeman is not enough to get you arrested?
Just, Prof, before you answer, just to capitalize on that, to say that they acted professionally, but again, was it timely? Because I understand, yes, in the end, no one was hurt, but did they respond to the situation on time to have prevented this? Or when they got there, the scuffling had ended anyway, so they didn't have much to do rather than to prevent further harm? And is that what we want them to do?
Actually, I guess all of us were not there, but we have been following the news, very closely. And eyewitnesses have given all kinds of accounts. First of all, to answer your question directly, I do not know of anywhere in the world where somebody can wave a gun in front of a policeman and go away without being arrested. That is surprising that there was no arrest in that case. Secondly, the timeliness. From eyewitnesses, it took about maybe 30 minutes or 25 minutes for the police to get there, even though I understand the Nima police station just across the street from Nana's place. So when you look at all these, you begin to question the professionalism of the police. I do know that the police at times is like being forced between a rock and a hard place. They have to do their duty. At the same time, they are also realists. They know how the political forces play in our politics. And therefore, a commander will be a little bit careful, a little bit reticent, taking certain actions. And that has been the problem with the police, not only under Mohammed's administration, but in almost all the past administrations. Like somebody says, or somebody may argue, is the president, the head of state, who appoints the Inspector General of Police. And of course, the Inspector General of Police also make other appointments. But I'm sure top-level appointments are made in consultation with the Police Council, which is presided over by the Vice President, I think, if I'm correct. Yes. So somehow there is that kind of political connection. But I think despite that, if the police personnel are confident of themselves and they know that they are just enforcing the law, and if they are able to do it evenly, I don't think anybody will have a problem. So it's a matter of not acting in cases where they think political authorities may be offended. That is where the problem comes. And I think because they are not able to do it forcefully when incumbent party members are involved, they also feel the same way not to also offend the other side. After all, these two main parties have been changing government, so exactly, so that has been the dilemma for the police, which is very unfortunate.
Okay, there's this thing. So you're looking at the police and how they work. You're looking at the prevention side, and then also you're looking at the reaction side, which is when an incident has occurred. And in either situation, you're looking at logistics.
That's correct.
And clearly, we know the police are under-resourced, if you like. Because recently I was watching, I think it was a news item up in the north somewhere, we're talking about police patrols and the fact that police don't have cars to do the patrols. They actually have to do this on foot. And I'm asking myself, how efficient would that be? So if you have, in the event that they do have walkie-talkies, for instance, I'm granting them that they would have. So if they do have, and somebody notifies you that there's an incident happening, say, not too far away, how are they able to get there on time to deal with it? So aside the fact that we're talking about the political interference and all, there's the real issue of logistics, which perhaps should also be dealt with. You
are absolutely right, even though we have to admit that over the past few years, a lot of equipment has been procured for the police. It's not like before, so we have to give credit where it's due. This government has invested quite a bit in the police, but certainly it's not enough. It's just like most other state institutions these days. NCC said they don't have money, so during this election we don't hear of the NCC. People go on strike because they are not paid. Teachers are not paid, so all kinds of things. So I think the state, our nation, is short of cash, and it's affecting all institutions across board.
Abner has talked about logistics. Is our police force capable to decipher facts from fiction? Because, in normal scenarios, you have the offended and the victim or the person who perpetrated the assault or whatever. But when it comes to the election criminal issues, everybody is crying foul. This one is saying this is the one that did it, and Party A is saying it's Party B. So I'm wondering, do they have what it takes to be able to decipher the facts and go ahead and lay arrests because they've been able to spool out investigatively who is at fault?
Great. And to add to that,
that's
so that
right.
you answer,
this really captured my room, and I tell you.
The recent incidents at Nanado's residence, we still don't have a formal account of what happened. Like you said in your earlier submission. So it's the story as put out by NPP or as put out by NDC, and clearly we know the positions already. There's no way the NPP is going to say, yes, we did this, or the NDC is going to say, yes, we did this. So, again, it goes to investigation and the investigative capacity of the police.
Our police service has been around for since when. They've trained their personnel in all kinds of ways. And these days, not like before, they have graduates in the service. In fact, some are getting PhDs legitimately. I'm not talking about those who get these honorary stuff. So the police is increasingly becoming more educated, so to speak. And if you take the BNI, for instance, they do have the capacity to investigate cases that they are interested in. Okay? And by the way, BNI is all over the country. Intelligence system is there. And I want to believe that if they are determined to do their job the way they ought to, they should be able to do it. But I think we just find ourselves in a political environment where even professionals are challenged to be professional. And that is the issue I think we have to look at. Because there are very fine policemen in the service. I know quite a number of them. They are very fine, professionally speaking. But no matter how good you are, if the environment within which you are operating is like Ghanaians. Ghanaians are accomplished people. We are talented. We perform well. As I go around, I wouldn't say I'm a globetrotter, but I've been to quite a number of countries. Anywhere you find a Ghanaian, that Ghanaian is performing some incredible job, you see. But when we come back here, the environment changes. So what you will never think of doing abroad, you come here, it's easy to do and you do it.
But do you think it's the kind of politics we practice, the winner takes all, that heightens the tension, you know, because when you lose completely, you know, and then when you win, it's all for you, and that heightens the tension. Maybe we need to look at the system in which we are practicing, and then, you know, this will reduce the tension.
I couldn't have agreed with you more on this one, because actually, on one hand, we have done very well with the Constitution. It served as well for the past 25 or so years. But at the same time, I believe strongly that it's time to take a critical look at the Constitution. What you just mentioned is a constitutional issue. Institutional
exclusivity.
Exactly. Because that's what our Constitution says. You see, when we are trying to develop democratic system, society, it's very important to take into serious account the cultural and historical milieu within which the people, you know, are going to be served with that kind of system. And I think to a large extent, for all kinds of reasons, perhaps some good, some not too good, we decided to craft this Constitution without due regard to some of these intricacies in our constitutional practice. Certainly, in a society like Ghana, where since the beginning of the independence struggle, back 1947, the founding of the UGCC, to the breakaway of the CPP from the UGCC, and Nkrumah coming on, and on, you know the politics. We have had this kind of, what you may call, this dual, or poles, two poles. Of course, now NDC has come in, so the CPP has gone down because the NDC swallowed up the CPP, all kinds of things. But the fact is that this duopoly of parties exists. And that is not a reason for us to worry about democracy per se. But I'm suggesting that in view of that, we can have a different system, which is still, it will still be democratic. The winner takes all, as he rightly said, means simply that whoever wins the majority, and majority is only one. In fact, last time it wasn't even one, it was 50.7. It wasn't even 51, and yet the whole state is given to the winner. Whilst, as he said, the loser has nothing.
Yes, Prof,
that's why people are now.
But on the issue of the winner takes all, I mean, I want to speak about security of tenure. I mean, these are institutions, these are policemen who are already employed. So they are already secured. So they are supposed to perform their duties. So there is nothing to say that, okay, if another political party comes into being, they are going to be fired or all of that, because we understand per the way our institutions are, it's very difficult to fire anybody. So why won't institutions work? Because they are already in place. They are already officers of those institutions.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And that is logical, that once these guys get employed, they are not going to be harassed or terminated. But don't forget that the same constitution you're talking about gives the power so much power to the president. Our president, in my view, can be best described as a king. It's an imperial presidency we have created. Can you imagine a president appointing somebody at the grassroots to be on a local assembly? Grassroots. Don't forget that. From the grassroots all the way to the top to himself. All state boards and institutions are populated by presidential appointees. And because the state is overwhelmingly dominant, our whole life is controlled by the state. And that one president controls this. So even though your job gives you job security, know that that king up there can call the IGP and say, look, this guy, this woman should be sent to this place. And it can be done, unfortunately. Because again, we're talking about winner takes all. You see, when you have a job, and you know that even though technically it's secure, but it's not secure, you have to play according to play to the game. Play to the game. That is why I personally believe that we need to revisit the Constitution and devolve power. Look, the issue of decentralization should be taken very, very seriously. Unfortunately, in this campaign, I'm not hearing much of that. The present power must be curtailed and given to local communities. For instance, if I know that I can be elected to be mayor of Kumasi or Accra or Tamale or wherever, and I'm elected, I do not have to kowtow to the president here. I'll be directly accountable to my people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It goes on in most democracies. So our system, even though we have to maintain the unitary system of governance, within that, we can decentralize power to create what I would call multiple centers of power, so that all eyes will not be on that one prize. There will be many prizes for eyes to catch. That is something I think we need to do to mitigate this 4-yearly tensions that we have in our political system.
Great. So still back to the substantive issue. Yes, we've veered off a bit, I mean, for good purpose though, but back to the security issue. The recent happenings or violence that we've witnessed, Odududu, and we've had incidents in other parts of the country, Islafo North, South, so many other places. You have this, you have a sense that yes, there is some level of gun-related violence in there. There are laws on ownership of guns and everything. There's the Small Arms Commission or something like that. My question is, what are the agencies responsible for such, if you like, regulations or operations? What are they doing about these things?
You know,
I'm always speaking to institutions.
Understand. But again, these institutions are operated by Ghanaians. You see, there's a certain Ghanaian character nobody wants to talk seriously about. It's a character that we have. Do you know this country is perhaps the most porous country in terms of entrance? Yeah. Nobody cares who comes in. Of course, we have migration officers at all points, but I can tell you, anybody can walk into this country.
But our borders are artificial.
That's another issue. But besides that, if you have rules and regulations, they must be enforced. It doesn't mean Togolese or Ivorians or Burkina cannot come. They should come back through the proper channels and with the right documentations. So we are not talking about sealing the borders, no. But I'm citing this to show you how permissive we are. Do you know a foreigner like these days, a Chinese can land today, tomorrow he's in my village digging gold. Where in the world can you go and dig gold? It's not, it doesn't happen anywhere, but it happens right at our noses. Governments know it, chiefs know it, everybody knows it, and it goes on. You see, and that reflects on how we operate, how we function as a people. So if you have an institution, either it's police or the judiciary or wherever, that character is part of it. We take things for granted. We are not serious about things. We are relaxed about issues. And that allows institutions to dysfunction.
Doc, you've raised a very important issue here, which is, I mean, people have argued that perhaps our democracy should be modeled around the sort of people we are. So that perhaps we wouldn't be expecting so much of us. Because the way you describe it, we are a very permissive group of people.
Yes.
So then why do we end up making laws so rigid? Because we know we're not going to comply anyways. So then why do we even bother?
But you know what Doc speaks about is even individual responsibility. This is citizenry that, I saw a strange person.
Exactly.
That's, you know, inclination to want to draw somebody's attention. Who is this person? And understanding the issues and the value chain that, look, this person is coming here, he's coming to dig gold, gold is for Ghana, I'm part of it. I mean, we don't seem to connect the issues.
It's for the government. That's what it is.
Yes.
Anyway, Prof, to go back to an issue you raised, that on election day, we're not allowed to, as it were, close our borders. It's open for transaction. You can't say because you are voting, another party can't come and transact business. But concerning security, because we know that sometimes, or in the past, some foreigners have been, it's as it were, we say they perpetuate some trouble in certain areas. So what, from your view in this security issue, what would you have suggested we do to curtail or to, you know, minimize something that could come from foreigners interfering in our electoral process?
That's a very hot issue. As you know, currently is an issue between the two leading political parties. So it's not something we can just kind of play around with. But I think it's a dilemma. You see, first of all, like my sister rightly said, we cannot cut off people, we cannot close our borders for good reasons. And by the way, as she also said, our borders are artificial. Part Togolese, part Ghanaian, part Bonong, Nzima, part Ivorian, part Burkina, part, you know, that's the way we are. But if we can be serious, especially now that we have technology, and we want to make sure our elections are truly by qualified individuals, then I don't understand why governments have not been serious with the national identification. You see, the national identification will enable you to do things without.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so you ask yourself, this thing was started under Kufuor's government, I know. They did not complete it. The government changed. And 8 years down the line, we still do not have the national IDs. Because that was going to be a solution. Look, when I was working with the UN in Tanzania, I was with the UNDP, and there was a program to support the government to do an ID. And we had several discussions. That idea then was to, in fact, to have one national database from which the Electoral Commission there would draw citizens, from which the banks can have their clients well documented, for all kinds of things. One central database, it is done. Instead of in Ghana having Electoral Commission his own database, this SNET has his own database. It's money that we are wasting. You see, and it's all because of
we don't need it. Where we need it, we don't have. But the areas where we don't need it is where we have.
That's right.
Consistently, government is formed by the coalitions, whereas here it's you have this duopoly as a product of how our system is structured. So perhaps, like we said earlier, is going back to the roots to have a certain re-engineering.
Absolutely, I agree absolutely, because frankly, and that's why at times when I think of it, even though I understand the white paper has been issued on it, this review initiated by Tamils, I'm not too sure, because even what the popular masses preferred, they diluted it and changed it against the popular will of the people. Very undemocratic. So I think the next government, whether it's Mahama, Kosindium, or Greenstreet, or Akufo-Addo, whoever becomes the next government, I think they should take a serious view of this. For our own security, we're talking to security now. Yeah. There are certain things that we can do within our political system to ensure more peace here. Yeah. Because if we're able to do away or mitigate the winner takes all, and a party B, as small as it is, can win a city or a certain district, at least it gives them hope that we are also part of the system. If party A can win this, so that everybody who plays a part can win something. And the one who gets the majority, of course, forms the government. But then we will have these small governments operating where people, you know, the centralization is one reason why we have this problem. Power is so much centralized. Up to today, people may have to come from Brong-Ahafo region to chase after small things here in Accra. Why? So I think our ability to re-engineer our constitution.
But we as a
would be
people,
good. Yeah.
we vote based on party. We've taken our parties like how we've taken football clubs.
Yes.
I mean, I belong to Kotoko, and it doesn't matter, I'm still Kotoko. You know, so that is how we tend to vote. We're not looking at, you know, what this person is offering me, the personality of that person, and, you know, and the aspirations that person, whether they meet mine or not. Because if we did that, I'm sure that we could easily have a hung parliament, if I should put it that way, a hung parliament, even without the decentralization, exactly. A hung parliament. And with a hung parliament, obviously, the government in power would need to talk to other people if you wanted to get anything,
exactly.
you know. But people say, oh, this party is small, and they don't even look at the parliamentary candidates.
Exactly.
And go ahead and vote for somebody. They have no idea who that person's aspirations are, what the person has for them, but that person belongs to a party. They believe that this is my party. And that's it. So I think our education, you know, fundamentally, we are not getting the right kind of education.
That's another part of the challenge we have, because our educational system is not feeding into our political system. In other words, we are not providing the kinds of courses, kinds of orientation that will make the citizens, as they are growing up, accept certain political realities, how it got to function. Because I don't know whether even at the tertiary level, students are required to take a course in civics. I mean, that's not the title, but like nowadays in the elementary school, that's what we call civics, okay? Citizenship, basically. So you are told about government and how it functions and local authorities. All these were taught, but no more. So I agree totally with you that if we are serious after re-engineering our constitution, simultaneously, we should be looking at how our educational system can also be structured to feed into. Look, the political elite will have to commit suicide in order for change to occur.
Exactly, yeah.
So the suicide here is what? A leader who said, look, it's like Mexico. Mexico for 40 years was controlled by one party. One president came and said, look, this is bad for us. I'm going to change it, but I lose. He changed it and he lost. He was happy. Exactly. Now, since then, Mexico has become fully democratic. That's what we need.
We're looking for such a leader.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much for shedding light on this issue. We appreciate your spending time with us. So that has been it on Big Bang 2. Discussing the issues with us is Professor Agyeman Dua. And he shed light on security matters, and I think it's been very insightful. Thank you, sir. We'll be happy to host you once again. So on Big Bang 2, we are looking at some political parties, specifically the PPP and the MPP, questioning the special voting exercise currently ongoing by the EC, less than 42 days to election, as the Constitution will have it. Ladies, the PPP, the MPP are worried that the EC is sort of in a caucus, you know, getting some special registration still ongoing for the police, for security agents and all of that, and this is unconstitutional because they're supposed to do this not more than 42 days to any particular elections. Your take?
For me, this again brings the issue about the mistrust in the system and how that is not healthy for the whole process, the whole electoral process. For me, anytime, well, it's good that certain things are brought up for resolution and all, but it's consistently coming up, raising issues, today this, tomorrow that, again, mistrust being deepened, laying the ground or foundation for a possible, if you like, questioning of the outcome of the elections. Which is like, I'm putting you on notice that, well, sometime very soon, I may raise a red flag, and for me, I don't think it's healthy and all. But well,
but is this because they are coming on the tangent of it not being constitutional? So I mean,
what is the EC's backing for doing this out of the constitutions, regardless of what their reasoning are. We know that the constitution is the basis for everything we do.
But has that been? I haven't followed the conversation on that, but I thought there was a ruling. I mean, this matter was taken to court, wasn't it? And then there was a ruling that it could be done. Exactly.
So that was slightly different.
That was
what was taken to court was the person wanted the special vote to be counted before. You know,
okay.
So I think that was the one that went to the Supreme Court and said no.
It should be counted later.
Yes.
Okay.
With the general.
Together with the general vote on the 7th, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But with that, did they make any mention of the timing as well?
Well, I don't think that's what they took to court.
So that's not what they
anyway. They took
so
to
we
court.
don't know for a fact if that is the issue, but they have raised, like, for me, if it is an issue that is in the constitution that it should be 42 days, not less than 42 days, then really it should be so.
If it's right, it's right. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And if she's doing it for any specific reason, I think there should be an open forum.
Well, I mean, you've only had one party's view. That is, or two parties' view. And I mean, we've seen IPAC meetings where certain decisions have been taken and a certain understanding has taken place, and parties have come out and said totally different things. So
I'm not even speaking on the issue of people's views.
I don't know. CPP has not discussed it because we haven't.
So you don't have an issue with it?
No, I'm hesitant to talk about it because we haven't sat down to discuss it so that I can give a view and say that is the CPP's view.
But it hasn't come up at IPAC.
No, if there's a breach of the law, okay, there's no explanation and the law has been wrong. It's up to the party that is saying that there has been a breach to go and say that there has been a breach and we don't want this and that. No, and take action. I mean, take action.
No, but you see,
because you say, no, but EC is a creature of the law. Okay, the EC is a creature of the law. I mean, that's why we have all these court cases going back and forth.
I mean, if we shouldn't be discussing it.
If you are going to mention it and not have a follow-up action to it, then there's no point in racking up the tension.
Okay, we are trying to have a certain conversation which would, I don't think we can influence anybody, but at least we have this platform, and so let's have a certain kind of conversation. We raised the issue about two parties raising issue to this, and Prissy here is saying that we have how many, to the best of our knowledge, or as of now, you have 7 presidential candidates, 6 political parties, 1 independent, going into the elections. And of course, there are other, the parliamentary candidates are out there as well. You have 2 out of the 7 raise issue. And the question here is, consistently, it's coming up as though it's just one side or one party raising issues. And that's what I was asking.
That's what I'm saying.
Has the CPP, for instance...
And I've given you an answer.
And you said no. That's the kind of
but you see,
conversation
let me give you an example on something that another party raised to do with the, what do you call it, the pink sheets that were printed without serial number. Yeah. At the printing place, it was explained beforehand why those ones were going to be printed before and why they were not going to have serial number. Yes, because parties send their representatives for the printing. I mean, the printing is not done without party representations done, okay? And yet one party came up and said that, oh, they are doing something underhand and they are printing pink sheets without serial numbers, without explanation. But the explanation had been given before at the printing house to the party representatives at the printing house. Yes. At the printing house, you have party representatives. Okay,
and the party for me. You know why?
No, but you see,
because it's as if the decision had been taken at the printing house. That this is why. So was it at an IPAC meeting, for instance?
So let's just not what
IPAC meetings are not every day. And let's get it. IPAC meetings are not every day, and IPAC meetings are not every day.
But you just
and IPAC meetings, okay, let's get it straight. Also, they are not mandatory. That whatever. It is for discussion.
If it's not binding or mandatory, why is it that if a party comes out to say that, well, yes, it was taken, but we don't think it's the right thing, why should that party be demonized or something?
Nobody is demonizing anybody. I'm saying that you go to an IPAC meeting, things are, if it's if you make your protest there, and everybody knows that this is your protest, and you come up and you say this is your protest, it's fine. It is the twisting of things that come out, you know. But be it as it may.
Please, I'm not interjecting, but I need to clarify, because this is to a specific issue. When you generalize, it is difficult to follow. Our point is special voting. Has this been discussed at IPAC? Because you're bringing in IPAC, and you are there. Yes. So if you're saying IPAC, I agree that IPAC never meets on daily issues, but there are some things that will come up. Has this come up, first of all? If it did come up, what was the general consensus before these two parties are now coming out of IPAC to say what they're saying?
But this didn't come up at an IPAC meeting.
Then we can't go back to IPAC.
I didn't mention IPAC. I did not mention IPAC.
You did. Decisions are not even binding.
Like
the EC
but the point remains that two parties are saying the EC is doing something unconstitutional. Except the EC has explained herself in a certain forum, saying this is the reason why I'm going to do X, Y, Z, albeit it's not in the Constitution. Really, these parties have the right to raise eyebrow and say, why are you doing something unconstitutional? And why does this seem as though the other parties are okay with everything that is happening, especially when it's a breach of Constitution? And the only reason why
you've breached Constitution, go and
no, it's not.
But listen. No. Let's go. Look, I think you've broken the law. Okay, and I think in you breaking the law, it is to my disadvantage. Why will I sit down and let it continue?
But you see,
but the issue has come out to explain. The issue has come out to explain why the numbers got bigger. Okay.
But this one, why it's even being held? Contrary to
no. The issue had been on the numbers. Really? The issue. You are not supposed to add a certain number after a certain number of days. So it's about the numbers. It's not about anything else, unless we are talking of different things. But it's about the numbers. I mean, the AC was supposed to have finished all its, tabulated everything, so that this is the number of people who do special voting. Then the issue came out that there was a certain add-on of numbers, and the parties queried it and cited and said that, okay, you are supposed to do this within a certain number of days, okay, and you didn't do it. So how come those number of days have elapsed and whatever? And the EC came out with their explanation. All I'm saying is that if the parties are not satisfied, you get it, with that explanation, okay, then they should do the right thing and not just let it slide.
In this case,
I don't know. I don't have a problem. So those who have a problem and are saying it, they should do the right thing in that case.
Anyways, well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for the show today. Interesting topics and all, but we need to call it a day. And it's been exciting. We'd like to say a big thank you to you for joining us, and thanks to Professor Agyeman-Duah for coming in to shed light on the issues about security as we go into the elections. We are looking forward and continually we are counting down to December 7th, and we hope that it comes and goes peacefully. My name is Abna Tebi. I've done this with my co-presenters Priscilla, Susan, and Nanama. We'll see you same time.